Section 3 of The Convivio. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Convivio by Dante Alighieri. Translated by Philip H. Wicksteed. Treatise 1, Chapters 9 through 13. Chapter 9. Now from all the three above-named conditions, which must unite in order that zealous liberality may reside in a benefaction, the Latin commentary would have been remote, whereas the vernacular is accompanied by them, as may be manifestly demonstrated thus. The Latin would not have served many. For, if we call to mind what was said above, lettered men who have not the Italian tongue could not have enjoyed this service. And as for those who have this tongue, should we choose to examine closely who they are, we shall find that they would have been served by it perhaps in the proportion of 1 to 1,000, for the rest would not have received it. So zealous are they towards avarice, which parts them from all nobility of mind, which is the chief cause for desiring this food. And in reproof of them I say that they ought not to be called lettered, because they do not acquire literature for its own use, but just in so far as they may gain money or office by it. Just as we ought not to call him a harper who hath a harp in his house to hire out for a price, and not to use it to play upon. Returning then to the main proposition, I say that it is clear enough how the Latin would have conferred its benefit upon few, whereas verily the vernacular will be of service to many. For goodness of mind, which awaits this service, is to be found in them who, by the grievous disuse of the world, have abandoned literature to such as have made her a harlot instead of a lady, which noble ones are princes, barons, and knights, and many other noble folk, not only men but women, of which men and women alike there are many of this tongue who command the vernacular but are not lettered. Further, Latin would not have been the giver of a useful gift which the vernacular will be, because nothing is useful save in so far as it is used. Nor does its excellence consist in potentiality which is not perfected existence, as in the case of gold, gems, and other treasures which be buried, albeit those which are in the hand of a miser are in a baser place than is the earth wherein the treasure is hidden. Now what this comment gives verily is the meaning of the odes, for which purpose it is made, the principal design whereof is to lead men to knowledge and virtue, as will be seen in the progress of the treatment of them. Of this meaning none can avail themselves save such in whom true nobility is sown, after the fashion which will be related in the 4th treatise. And almost all of these command the vernacular only, even as those noble ones named above in this chapter. And this is not contradicted by a lettered man here and there being one of them. For as saith my master Aristotle in the first of the Ethics, one swallow does not make spring. It is plain then that the vernacular will give a useful thing, whereas the Latin would not have given it. Further, the vernacular will give a gift unasked, which the Latin would not have done, for it will give itself as a commentary which was never yet asked by any one, and this cannot be said of the Latin, for it has been demanded ere now as commentary and gloss to many writings, as may be seen clearly at the head of many of the same. And thus it is manifest that zealous liberality moved me to the vernacular rather than to the Latin. Chapter 10. Great must be the excuse when at a banquet so noble in its viands, and so distinguished in its guests, oaten and not wheaten bread is presented. And evident must be the reason which shall make a man depart from that which hath long been observed by others, to wit, commenting in Latin. And therefore the reason must be made manifest. For the issue of new things is uncertain, because there hath never been experience thereof, by which things of usage and tradition are regulated both in their progress and in their end. And this is why reason was moved to command that men should have careful respect of entering on a new path, saying, that in ordaining new things the reason must be evident which shall make us depart from that which hath long been of use. Let none marvel then if the digression of my apology be long, but let him patiently endure its length as necessary. And following it out, I declare that, inasmuch as it hath been shown how I was moved to the vernacular, and forsook the Latin commentary to prevent undue inversion of order, and in zeal of liberality, the order of the whole apology will have me show how I was moved thereto by the natural love of my own tongue, which is the third and last reason which moved me to it. Hereto I say that natural love chiefly moves the lover to three things. The first is to magnify the loved object, the next to be jealous for it, the third is to defend it, as every one may see continually happening. And these three things made me adopt it, to wit, the vernacular, for both naturally and incidentally I love it and have loved. I was moved in the first place to magnify it, and that herein I do magnify it may be seen by this reason. Albeit things can be magnified, that is, made great, by many conditions of greatness, none of them make so great as the greatness of their own proper excellence, which is the mother and preserver of the other greatnesses. Wherefore a man can have no greatness more than that of the virtuous operation, which is his own proper excellence, whereby the greatness of true dignities and of true honours, of true power, of true riches, of true friends, of true and clear fame, are both acquired and preserved. And this greatness do I give to this friend, inasmuch as the excellence which it had in potentiality and in secret, I make it have in actuality and publicity, in its own proper operation, which is to make manifest the thought conceived. I was moved in the second place by jealousy for it. Jealousy for a friend makes a man take anxious thought for his distant future. Wherefore, reflecting that the desire to understand these odes would have induced some unlettered man to have the Latin commentary translated into the vernacular, and fearing lest the vernacular should be set down by one who should make it appear hideous, as did he who translated the Latin of the Ethics, I was careful myself to set it down, trusting rather in myself than in another. I was further moved to defend it from its many detractors who dispraise it and commend the others, especially the Languedoc, saying that this is more beauteous and better than that, departing herein from the truth. For by this comment the great excellence of the vernacular of C will be perceived, to wit, how by it the most lofty and most novel conceptions are expressed, well nigh as aptly, as adequately, and as gracefully as in Latin itself. For in rhymed compositions, because of the incidental adornments which are inwoven therein, to wit, rhyme and rhythm and regulated number, its own excellence cannot be made manifest, no more than the beauty of a woman can, when the adornment of decking and of garments brings her more admiration than she brings herself. Wherefore let him who would rightly judge of a woman look on her when only her natural beauty accompanies her, severed from all incidental adornment; even as this comment will be, wherein shall be perceived the smoothness of its syllables, the propriety of its rules, and the sweet discourses that are made of it; all which he who shall rightly consider it will perceive to be full of sweetest and most attractive beauty. But since it is a most effective part of invention to demonstrate the viciousness and malice of the accuser, I will tell, to the confusion of those who accuse the Italian speech, what it is that moves them thereto. And of this I will presently make a separate chapter, that their infamy may be the more conspicuous. Chapter 11. To the perpetual infamy and suppression of the evil men of Italy, who prize the vernacular of another and disprize their own, I declare that their impulse arises from 5 detestable causes. The first, blindness in discernment; the second, disingenuous excusing; the third, desire of vain glory; the fourth, the prompting of envy; the fifth and last, abjectness of mind, or pusillanimity. And each one of these guilty tendencies has so great a following that there be few exempt from them. Of the first, one may thus discourse: like as the sensitive part of the mind hath its eyes whereby it apprehendeth the difference of things, in so far as they are coloured externally, even so hath the rational part its eye, whereby it apprehendeth the difference of things, in so far as they be ordained to some certain end. And this same eye is discernment. And like as he who is blind with the eyes of sense must ever judge of evil or good according to others, so he who is blind of the light of discernment must ever follow in his judgment after mere report, true or false. And so, whensoever the leader is blind, he himself, and also the one blind likewise, who leaneth upon him, must needs come to an evil end. Wherefore it is written, that the blind shall lead the blind, and so shall they both fall into the ditch. Now this same report hath long been counter to our vernacular, for reasons which shall be discoursed of below. Following the which, the blind ones spoken of above, who are almost without number, with their hands upon the shoulders of these liars, have fallen into the ditch of the false opinion from which they know not how to escape. To the habit of this light of discernment the populace are specially blinded, because they are occupied from the beginning of their lives with some trade, and so direct their minds to it, by force of necessity, that they give heed to naught else. And because the habit of a virtue, whether moral or intellectual, may not be had of a sudden, but must needs be acquired by practice, and they devote their practice to some art, and are not careful to discern other things, it is impossible for them to have discernment. Wherefore it comes to pass that they often cry long live their death, and death to their life, if only some one raise the cry. And this is the most perilous defect involved in their blindness. Wherefore Boethius considers popular glory an empty thing, because he sees that it has no discernment. Such are to be regarded as sheep, and not men. For if one sheep were to fling itself over a precipice of 1,000 paces, all the others would go after it. And if one sheep leap for any reason as it passes a street, all the others leap, although they see nothing to leap over. And ere now I myself have seen one after another leap into a well because one leapt into it, thinking, I suppose, that it was leaping over a wall, although the shepherd, wailing and shouting, set himself with arms and breast before them. The second sect who oppose our vernacular is made up by disingenuous excusings. There are many who love to be thought masters rather than to be such, and to avoid the opposite, to wit, not being thought such, they ever find fault with the material of their art that is furnished them, or else the instrument. For example, a bad smith finds fault with the iron furnished him, and a bad harper finds fault with the harp, thinking to throw the blame of the bad knife or the bad music upon the iron and upon the harp, and to remove it from himself. And in like manner there be some, and they are not few, who would have men think them poets, and to excuse themselves for not poetizing, or for poetizing badly, they accuse and blame the material, to wit, their own vernacular, and praise that of others, which they are not required to forge. And if any one would see how far this iron is really to be blamed, let him look upon the works which the good artificers make from it, and he will recognize the disingenuousness of those who by blaming it think to excuse themselves. Against such as these Tully cries out in the beginning of a book of his, which is called the book Concerning the Goal of Good, because in his time they found fault with the Latin of the Romans, and commended the grammar of the Greeks, for the like reasons for which these others now make the Italian speech cheap, and that of Provence precious. The third sect against our vernacular is made up by desire of vainglory. There are many who by handling things composed in some tongue not their own, and by commending the said tongue, look to be more admired than by handling things in their own tongue. And doubtless it is a matter of some praise of intellect rightly to apprehend a foreign tongue, but it is blameworthy to commend it beyond the truth, in order to vaunt oneself for such acquirement. The fourth is made up by the prompting of envy. As was said above, there is envy wherever there is similarity. Amongst men of one tongue there is similarity in vernacular, and because one cannot handle it as another can, envy springs up. So the envious man goes subtly to work, and doth not find with him who poetizes the fault of not knowing how to write, but finds fault with that which is the material of his work, so that by slighting the work on that side he may deprive the poet of honor and of fame; as one should find fault with the steel of a sword for the sake of discrediting not the steel, but the whole work of the master. The fifth and last sect is impelled by abjectness of mind. The large-souled man ever exalts himself in his heart, and so counterwise the small-souled man ever holds himself less than he really is. And because magnifying and minifying always have regard to something in comparison to which the large-souled man makes himself great, and the small-souled man makes himself little, it comes to pass that the large-souled man always makes others of less account than they are, and the small-souled man of more. And because with the same measure wherewith a man measures himself, he measures the things that are his, which are as it were a part of himself, it comes to pass that the large-souled man's things always seem to him better than they are, and the things of others worse, and the small-souled man always thinks of his things of little worth, and the things of others of much. Wherefore many, by reason of this abjectness, depreciate their own vernacular, and praise that of others. And all these together make up the detestable wretches of Italy, who hold cheap that costly vernacular, if which be vile in aught it is, only in so far as it sounds upon the prostitute lips of these adulterers, by whose guidance the blind men go, of whom I made mention under the head of the first cause. Chapter 12. If the flame of fire were issuing plain to see from the windows of a house, and one should ask whether there was a fire therein, and another should answer him yea, I could not well judge which of the two were most to be derided. And of no other fashion were his question and my answer, should one ask me, after the reasons set forth above, whether love of my own tongue is in me, and should I answer him yea. But none the less I have yet to show that not only love, but most perfect love of it, abides in me, and I have yet further to denounce its adversaries. And in demonstrating this to whoso shall rightly understand, I will tell how I became its friend, and then how the friendship was confirmed. I say then, as Tully may be seen to write in that of Friendship, not departing therein from the teaching of the philosopher set forth in the 8th and 9th of the Ethics, that nearness and excellence are the natural causes which generate love, and benefaction, community of study and comradeship are the causes which foster love. And all these causes have been at work begetting and strengthening the love which I bear to my vernacular, as I will briefly show. A thing is near in proportion as of all the things of its kind it is most closely united to a man. Wherefore a son is nearest to his father, and of all arts medicine is nearest to the doctor, and music to the musician, because they are more closely united to them than are the rest. Of all lands, that is nearest to a man wherein he maintains himself, because it is more closely united to him. And thus a man's proper vernacular is nearest to him, inasmuch as it is most closely united to him. For it is singly and alone in his mind before any other. And not only is it united to him essentially, in itself, but also incidentally, inasmuch as it is conjoined with the persons closest to him, as his relatives, his fellow citizens, and his own people. Such then is a man's own vernacular, which we will not call near, but most nearest to him. Wherefore, if nearness be the seed of friendship, as was said above, it is clear that it is amongst the causes of the love which I bear to my tongue, which is most near to me above the others. It was the above said cause, namely, that is most closely united, which at first has sole possession of the mind, that gave rise to the custom which makes firstborn sons succeed alone as the closer, and because closer, more loved. Again, its excellence makes me its friend. And here you are to know that every excellence proper to a thing is to be loved in that thing, as in masculinity to be well bearded, and in femininity to be well smooth of beard over all the face, as in a setter good scent, and in a boarhound good speed. And the more proper is the excellence, the better is it to be loved. Wherefore, though every virtue is to be loved in man, that is most to be loved in him which is most human, and that is justice, which abides only in the rational or intellectual part, that is, in the will. This is so much to be loved that, as the Philosopher says in the 5th of the Ethics, they who are its foes, as are robbers and plunderers, love it. And therefore we see that its contrary, to wit, injustice, is most hated, as treachery, ingratitude, forgery, theft, rapine, cheating, and their likes, which be such inhuman sins that, to shield himself from the infamy thereof, long usage alloweth that man may speak of himself, as was said above, and that he have leave to declare himself faithful and loyal. Of this virtue I shall hereafter speak more at length in the 14th treatise, and here leaving it, I return to the matter in hand. That has been shown then to be the most proper excellence of a thing, which is most loved and praised in it, and we must see in each case what that excellence is. Now we see that in all matters of speech, rightly to manifest the conception is the most loved and commended. This then is its prime excellence. And inasmuch as this excellence abideth in our vernacular, as hath been shown above, in another chapter, it is clear that it is of the causes of the love which I bear to the said vernacular, because, as already said, excellence is a cause that generates love. Chapter 13. Having told how these two things exist in my own tongue, whereby I was made its friend, to wit, its nearness to myself and its own excellence, I will tell how, by benefaction and harmony of study, and the goodwill of long comradeship, the friendship has been confirmed and fostered. I say first that I, in myself, have received the greatest of benefactions from it. And therefore be it known that amongst all benefactions, that is greatest which is most precious to him who receives it. And nothing is so precious as that for the sake of which all the others are desired. and all other things are desired for the perfection of him who desires them. Wherefore, since a man hath two perfections, the first and the second, the first gives him being, and the second gives him well-being, if my proper tongue hath been the cause both of the one and of the other, I have received the very greatest benefaction from it. And that it hath been the cause of my existence, if my being here at all did not establish it, may be briefly shown. May not there be many efficient causes with respect to one thing, though one of them be so in a higher degree than the others? For the fire and the hammer are efficient causes of the knife, though the smith is so in chiefest place. Now this my vernacular it was that brought together them who begat me, for by it they spoke. Even as the fire disposes the iron for the smith who is making the knife. Wherefore it is manifest that it took part in my begetting, and so was a certain cause of my being. Moreover, this my vernacular led me into the way of knowledge, which is our specific perfection, inasmuch as by it I entered upon Latin, which was explained to me in it, which Latin was then my path to further advance. Wherefore it is plain and is acknowledged by me that it hath been my benefactor in the highest degree. Also it hath been of one same purpose with me, which I can thus prove. Everything naturally studies its own preservation. Wherefore, if the vernacular could in itself pursue any purpose, it would study this preservation, and this would be adapting itself to greater stability, and greater stability it could not have save by binding itself in numbers and in rhymes. And this same study hath been mine, as is so manifest as to need no witness. Wherefore one same study hath been common to it and to me, whence by this harmony our friendship hath been confirmed and fostered. Further, ours is the good will of comradeship, for from the beginning of my life I have abode in good will and communion with it, and have used it in pondering, in explaining, and in questioning. Wherefore, if friendship grows by comradeship, as is plain to the sense, it is manifest that it hath grown in me to the highest, since I have passed all my time in company with this same vernacular. Wherefore it appears that all the causes which can generate and foster friendship have combined for this friendship. Whence the conclusion that not only love, but most perfect love for it, is that which I ought to have, and which I have. So, turning back our eyes, and gathering up the reasons already noted, it may be seen that this bread with which the viands of the odes written below must be eaten is sufficiently purged from its blemishes, and from being made of oats. Wherefore it is time to set about serving the viands. This shall be that oaten bread whereby thousands shall be sated, and my baskets shall be left full for me. This shall be the new light, the new sun, which shall rise when the wonted sun shall set, and shall give light to them who are in darkness and in shadow, as to the wonted sun, which shines not for them. End of section 3.